So, welcome to Uplift and Elevate. This is our Uplift podcast series that shares courageous stories of individuals getting an honest look into their life, their struggles, successes, and how they broke down barriers to get where they are today. We are Amy and Christina and believe that honest conversations can help give you the elevation and empowerment to write your own success story. Today, I have the absolute pleasure to welcome Anelia Asparuhova, aka Nellie. Welcome, Nellie. Nellie's had a pretty epic career, been involved in numerous blockbuster films and TV shows, but is an activist constantly challenging our own societal preconceptions, along with how to be a visual effects supervisor in a man's world. She's a firm believer in believing in yourself because once you start, there's nothing stopping you from succeeding. And I can't wait to speak to her today. So without further ado, welcome,
Hi,
Nellie.
Amy and
Hi, Nellie.
Christina. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
You've worked in VFX for over 20 years and on countless films and TV projects. Now, I'm not going to list off every single film and TV project, but I've got a short list here. Edge of Tomorrow, Paddington, Doctor Strange, Maleficent Mistress of Evil, and just recently, The School for Good and Evil. Would you kindly share with us your experience and kind of like what drives your passion to continue in this industry?
What excites me about what I do is there's a couple of elements to it, actually. One of them is just the challenge of starting a project from the ground up and turning it into something that is complete and you're fulfilling the vision of the creators of the film, and you're kind of making a contribution to something that hopefully people will enjoy watching. So that's one element to it. What excites me as well is working with so many talented people, and just seeing. We're very lucky that we work in an industry where people are generally very passionate about what they do. It's not the kind of job where people will be like, oh, this is just boring. No, everybody's wants to do a good job. Everybody's is creative and excited about the project that they're doing, and actually just seeing this creativity come out and seeing people who really want to do a good job and actually come up with creative solutions and ideas. It's really, really cool to see.
So the World Economic Forum has released what future skills are needed, and one of them is around our tolerance to stress as well. And so actually, as the world is getting far more complex and like kind of all of these things, actually that is now classed as one of those skills that people need to have in the workplace. I think in visual effects they've had to have it for a long time, but like that, like how do you deal with that ongoing kind of stress, and actually people being taught how to deal with that as well? Because being thrown into the fire pit is one thing, but actually being able to come out the other side unscathed, like having dealt with like that level of stress is
I also think I've read something recently, and it was about the way people perceive stress, and the outcome that they get out of it. So I think I'm going to butcher that example completely, but from memory, it was basically if people saw stressful situation as a challenge, as an opportunity to kind of come up with a plan and come out with a better outcome, then the way their body perceived the stress was in a lot more positive way, than for people who would just like see stress as something negative. And in a way, I think stress, even though it has a bad reputation, it can be helpful. I think chronic stress, when you completely like constantly stressed, is really, really not good for you. But then when you think about it, even with your body, any kind of external stressors make you stronger. Any kind of like cold showers in the morning will make you more tolerant to cold, and like anything like this. Stress is good. Stress in limited amounts is good for you. It's just when you're stressed all the time for a very long time, at some point your body just can't cope with it. I also think that it's something that you can kind of train yourself. You can change your perception of how you see stress, and when you start seeing stress as a positive thing. And again, I just want to differentiate between like a stressful situation or a stressful project versus just being stressed for months and months at a time. It can be a positive thing, and in a way it's kind of, I see stress now as something that will always happen, and I think that's kind of the point of what I was saying earlier, is that once you go through a few of these stressful situations, you know you'll survive it, you know you'll come out of it fine, so you just don't stress anymore. Like, you don't get born confident, you don't get born skillful in anything. You end up in a situation which hopefully ends up in a positive result, and that builds your confidence, and then you do it again and then again and again. Yeah.
I think a lot of it is quite linked to the perceived notion of control, because if you go back to what you were saying, you were like, this is what we can do within the sphere of what we actually have control over. I think stress is also triggered or like exacerbated far out of when we perceive that we don't have control. So if we're taking on like kind of the weight of the world, or like kind of the weight of the project, or the weight of everything, we get much more stressed rather than actually, well, this is what we can do, and physically to kind of take control over, versus trying to amount for everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's also another element to it, is that whenever you push yourself out of your comfort zone, you have to realize that you're not going to be completely in control. Right? You can only be in control with something that where you know what you're doing, and in a way that's kind of been my experience with any time I get promoted. There's never a time when I feel like I know exactly what I'm getting myself into. This is how it's going to go. It's going to be fantastic because I know everything that I'm going to do. No, you get promoted, and you're like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to have to use my best judgment and try and make good decisions and hope for the best.
And when we have previously chatted, we spoke about the imposter syndrome and how it mainly affects women. Can you expand on your insights into why that might be?
It has a lot to do with people thinking that they need to be perfect at everything they do, like people not allowing themselves to make mistakes. And in a way, whenever I go into a new role, I know that it's not going to be perfect. And also, I think whenever you get promoted, you feel, at least I think that's been my observation, you feel like you need to be the full package. You need to know, like, you need to have all the answers, you need to know everything. And people and women tend to be quite harsh on themselves in terms of what everybody's expectations around them are. And in a way, they feel like there is no room for errors. There is no room for mistakes. They have to be something. They have to perform in a certain way. They have to maybe even dress in a certain way to prove that they deserve this role and they deserve to be in this position. Whilst the reality is that the people who promoted you know that this is your first time doing the job, and obviously there is, as long as you don't make really, really bad mistakes that are detrimental to the project that you're working on, I feel like people have higher expectations of who they should be whenever they're in a role, especially in a new role. And I think that's kind of what the imposter syndrome comes from. It's like, what if people find out that I'm not this perfect visual effects supervisor? And it's like, well, you only become you never become perfect at anything, but you only become good by doing this again and again and again and learning from it. So in general, I think just people who have the imposter syndromes are being too harsh and unforgiving to themselves, and far more than actually the people around them.
What's the one thing that's an absolute must in your life that you just won't budge on, rain or shine?
My family. That's my the most important thing for me. So I don't make compromises when it comes to my family. I would move countries when I need to. I would do whatever it takes, basically, whatever's best for my family.
Something that I wouldn't budge on would be exercise.
That's
I
a
know
good
I
one.
have to get out there. I just need my
Oh,
steps.
that's an excellent one. I wish I could say the same. I love exercising, but I've had so many times when I've been in and out of shape. When I'm in shape and when I'm training and it feels amazing, I've had months, sometimes years at a time when I wasn't working out, and it's always this drive to kind of get back into it, because it's the best thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah, even if it's just walking every day, it just really helps with de-stressing, at least for me,
Yeah, that's
pounding
fantastic.
on the pavement. What about you, Amy?
Pounding the pavement. Yeah, I get a bit obsessive about exercise as well, but I'm kind of more like Nellie in that I go through periods of like quite intensely getting attached to it, and then I'm like pave off. Generally, though, I'm quite good with exercise. I'd say the same as Nelly, like family, like completely, like particularly my daughter. Yeah, there's no compromise kind of there, as much as she's a hellraiser sometimes.
What excites you most about the future? That can be career, travel, technology.
Career wise, I look forward to the time when I'll be a little bit more confident as a VFX supervisor. I'm on my third project now, and that's kind of an experience that I've always had whenever I got promoted. Like the first couple of projects are like you're just still trying to find your feet, and it's like you're still trying to figure out what you're doing. So that's something I look forward to, for sure. I'm kind of quite excited to see what happens with AI. I know it's a scary thing for a lot of people, because a lot of people are worried that it can replace some of the jobs people are doing. But at the same time, I think that's a really, really interesting new world, and I'd love to see where that takes us.
Yeah, I agree. I think lots of exciting things come up. And even if it helps just with doing the mundane tasks that nobody wants to do,
That's true.
even that
I,
saves them time and they could just focus on being creative. I think that's just a plus.
Absolutely. I think it will probably restructure the way people work as opposed to replace people. And it could be a very, very powerful tool for people who are creative, and they can be a lot more productive with that.